When we tune into a show, we don't want everything to be spelled out right before us.
Sometimes a film leaves a few questions unanswered, purely because of bad writing or a pesky old plot hole.
We want teasers and mysteries and questions that set us all ablaze with speculation and theories. That being said, sometimes shows fail to deliver on the promise of a question asked. So let's take a look at some.
I'm Ewan.
I'm Adam.
This is Whatculture.
And here are confusing TV show
and movie questions we still don't understand. What happened to Tiamat? Eternals. The 26th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Chloe Zhao's The Eternals focused on a group of immortals tasked with safeguarding humanity for millennia from alien predators called Deviants. I've included that synopsis in there because, judging from the box office and reviews, none of you went to see it, and well, if you did, I'm sorry for reminding you. Anyway, the titular heroes of the film are unaware their creators, the Celestials, want humanity's population to thrive so that their collective energy can awaken a Celestial called Tiamat from the Earth's core. When the Eternals learn that Tiamat's birth will result in mankind's destruction, they do everything they can to prevent it, which is really nice of them. Luckily, the Eternals stop Tiamat's emergence just as his body breaks through the planet's crust. But since there is a space god sticking out the Indian Ocean, it should have some major impact on the world, right? And yet, Tiamat has never been referenced again. Even though there have been MCU films since and a whole bunch of shows no one particularly cares about, nobody has mentioned the 300-mile tall robot poking out of the sea, despite the fact it's probably visible from 20 countries. Considering this cosmic being has been hibernating inside the core for who knows how long, society should probably be freaking out. But nah, which only makes the whole, well, I guess that happened feeling of the Eternals even more pronounced. Now, to be generous, with so many projects going on at once, the Marvel franchise can't be expected to tie up every loose end. Having said that though, it would be refreshing if something was mentioned about Tiamat, given just how freaking big they are. How did the chicken get there? The Hangover. In Todd Phillips' The Hangover, Stu, Ed Helms, Phil, Bradley Cooper, and Alan, played by Zach Galifianakis, have a bachelor's party in Las Vegas for their friend Doug, played by Justin Bartha of National Treasure fame. Waking up with no memory of the night before, the friends try to find Doug, who's gone missing. While retracing their steps, the Wolfpack learn they stole Mike Tyson's pet tiger, partied with Carrot Top, befriended a gangster, and attended Ed's wedding with a stripper. In the closing moments of the 2009 comedy though, Alan discovers Stu's camera, which contains photos of their escapades from the previous night. As they look upon the debauchery they took part in, they finally gain insight into what happened during the night in question. However, there's one aspect that's left out. When the three friends wake up that morning, one of the first things they see is a chicken inexplicably hanging around their room. This leaves two questions. How did it get there, and why? Now, considering the guys got involved in the mob and stole from a heavyweight boxer, bringing a hen into a hotel is pretty tame by comparison. Nevertheless, it's never explained how the farm animal got into the hotel room or why she was brought there in the first place. Truly an unsolved mystery of unsolved mysteries.
How did the Firebenders reach the Air Temples? Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the most beloved TV shows of all time. To this day, Aang and his journey from scared runaway to the undaunted savior of the world continues to occupy a special place in the hearts of its fans. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a few things that were left unanswered. One of those things concerned the Air Nomad genocide and how exactly it came about. It is well known that the air temples are located on very high altitudes, allowing the nomads to properly detach themselves from the world. These sacred places were accessible only by sky bison, as pointed out by Aang. This is what made the reveal of their destruction even more shocking. While everyone understood the significance of this and how it became a driving force for Aang on the path to fulfill his destiny, it was never quite explained how the Fire Nation overcame the aforementioned geographic barrier. The Firebenders certainly didn't have any sky bison, nor did they possess any flying machines back then.
Who shot at Lucas? The Hunt. Thomas Vinterberg's The Hunt revolves around a kindergarten teacher called Lucas, played by Mads Mikkelsen, whose life crumbles when his student Clara falsely accuses him of sexual abuse. Despite being found innocent in court, locals throw stones at Lucas's house, attack him at the grocer's, and even kill his dog. Over time, Clara admits to her father that she made everything up, letting Lucas off the hook. The final scene cuts to a year later with Lucas meeting with his friends for a hunting trip. With the community embracing Lucas once more, it seems like everything's coming up Mads' house. As he treks through the forest though, someone ends up shooting at him, narrowly missing his head. Although Lucas sees the shooter, he's unable to make out his face. The mysterious figure flees before the screen then cuts to black. Based on this bleak ending, it's suggested that Lucas will never be rid of the paranoia manifested around him, despite proving his innocence from every conceivable angle in the year before. Although this scene is meant to highlight that Lucas's struggles won't ever really be over, it's hard not to fixate on his attacker's identity. Is one of the teachers out to get him? Is it one of Lucas's friends? That butcher he headbutted at the grocery store? There's no definitive answer, but that ambiguity is the point. It could be anyone, and that means Lucas will never be free or have his old life back. Even so, trying to figure out who the assailant was remains captivating in itself. Is the accused really innocent? 12 Angry Men. Sidney Lumet's classic directorial debut, 12 Angry Men, has remained an iconic courtroom drama for decades, but it spends almost no time in the courtroom itself. Instead, the story focuses on how the jurors deliberate over the case and ultimately decide whether the defendant is guilty or innocent of murder. 12 Angry Men masterfully shows how one person can decide the life of another, for better or for worse. Even though the jurors were ready to send the young lad to the electric chair, a sliver of doubt from one of them causes everybody to question themselves. The film also highlights how life-changing decisions should be decided by evidence and logic, rather than through stubbornness and impatience, or whatever's just convenient. But the riveting story never answers the biggest question of all. Did the accused actually do it? The final verdict states the accused is innocent, but the audience is never shown whether this is the quote-unquote correct verdict as it pertains to the case itself. Yes, the details surrounding the murder are meticulously explored, but the events themselves are never definitively shown. Again, it's not really important in the grand scheme of things, but one of those where the more you think about it, the more it does raise a few eyebrows.
What caused Vola's eye injury dark? To be fair, if one were to start looking for questions left unanswered in dark, they would have to be added for, ironically, a long time. Netflix's time-traveling, mind-bending epic took fans on one of the most enjoyable and confusing rides ever experienced. The story of alternate worlds being born out of one man's desire to battle time spawned a myriad of mysteries. One of those was the eye injury suffered by Torben Vola. A member of the Vinden police force, Vola appears in the 2019 to 2020 time period. The man's most prominent feature was his heavily bandaged eye. Now, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't necessarily become a topic of interest, but it was the way in which the show treated it that sent viewers into speculation mode. On two separate occasions, Vola was about to reveal the cause of the injury, and both times he was interrupted. The second time this happened, it was near the very end of the show. Would the showrunners really have bothered giving it a place in the series finale if it wasn't something significant?
What's inside the FedEx box? Castaway. Robert Zemeckis' Castaway follows Tom Hanks as Chuck Noland, a FedEx analyst who finds himself trapped on a remote island after his plane crashes. When Chuck begins to lose hope, he opens the FedEx packages that washed up on shore, finding items to help him survive. However, he decides to leave an angel-winged parcel unopened, promising to ship it to himself when he makes his way home. After Chuck is rescued 4 years later, he stays true to his word, dropping the box off at its destination. Of course, the contents of the package aren't as important as what it symbolizes, since it encouraged Chuck to carry on even when the odds were fully stacked against him. As such, nobody should really care what lies within, unless, of course, it was something that would have been handy on a deserted island, like a satellite phone or something. But since human beings are all curious creatures, it's next to impossible not to wonder what the package actually contained. Was it Lego? A cool poster? Maybe some Criterion Blu-rays? We need to know. Now, Zemeckis could have put an end to this confounding question by clarifying the matter himself. Instead, the Back to the Future director has remained hush-hush, causing the mystery behind the FedEx box to linger ever since. What's with all the spiders? Enemy. Arachnophobes, you have been warned. Skip along to the next entry if you aren't a fan of eight-legged freaks, because things are about to get both creepy and crawly. Loosely based on Jose Saramago's The Double, Denis Villeneuve's Enemy follows a man called Adam Bell, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, whose life turns upside down after discovering he has a doppelganger called Anthony Clare, also played by Gyllenhaal. Although there's no obvious explanation why Adam and Anthony are identical, that's not the film's biggest mystery. When the credits roll, the major question on everyone's mind, I imagine, is what the hell is going on with all those spiders? The eight-legged critters appear throughout the film, often in a surreal and kaleidoscopic manner. In the opening, Adam watches a naked entertainer crush a tarantula during an erotic show. When Adam and Anthony sleep, they dream of spider-headed women and skyscraper-sized arachnids. Then there's the ending. While Adam passes himself off as his physical twin, he tells Anthony's wife he's going out as she walks into the bedroom. When she doesn't answer, Adam heads into the room himself, only to find a colossal tarantula cowering in terror. Although viewers can draw their own conclusion and theories, it's difficult to be certain about anything in particular, since spiders symbolize many things including fear, danger, deceit, and even disgust if you're that way inclined. Though Villeneuve has confirmed the spiders symbolize femininity in his film, it's ultimately up to the viewers to put their own pieces together. Was the final scene a dream? Moreover, why is the spider cowering in fear? Also, how come Adam isn't bothered there's a 10-foot wide monster in the bedroom? Because I know if I saw a critter that big in there, and I actually quite like spiders, all things considered, I'd be running out, kicking, and screaming. Either way, due to this recurring motif, it's fitting how Enemy has created a literal web of confusion that's left many scratching their heads since its release.
Why did future Matt tell present Matt to go back? Primeval. As far as frustrating cliffhangers go, this one is right up there. Primeval told the story of a team of scientists investigating anomalies that allow creatures from different time periods to enter and wreak havoc on the present. After 5 seasons of battling temporal phenomenon and secret terrorist plots, the group take on their biggest challenge in the form of New Dawn. In the end, they are able to close this anomaly and save the day. With everything appearing to be normal, and Connor and Abby set to get married, it seemed like the show is headed for a feel-good ending. This wasn't to be though. The very last scene sees the team head off to deal with a new anomaly. This is when Matt meets his own future self. Looking worse for wear, future Matt tells his younger self that he must go back. Did he mean Matt must go back to where the New Dawn was? Or did he intend for his younger version to go back in time? From where we're currently standing, it looks like we'll never know for sure.
What happened to Sean? Minority Report. In this Philip K. Dick adaptation from Steven Spielberg, a cop called John Anderton, played by Tom Cruise, uses precog technology to catch criminals before they have a chance to commit murders. When the precogs predict that John will murder a man called Leo Crow, he assumes that he's being framed. When our protagonist confronts his supposed victim, Crow claims to be the person who kidnapped John's son Sean, who disappeared years ago. When John refuses to kill him though, Crow confesses he was paid by an unknown benefactor to pretend that he kidnapped Sean. After John proves he was set up, he's exonerated of all his crimes. Despite the happy ending though, John never reunites with Sean, nor does he learn what happened to him. In fact, it's unknown whether he's still alive. When one of the precogs talks about Sean living as an adult, it sounds like John's son is still out there somewhere. But after the precog contradicts her own statements, she demonstrates how inconsistent her premonitions actually are, dashing John's hopes once again. Even though it's reassuring to see John move on, it's a pity that he, and by extension ourselves, never learned what really became of Sean. Who took Tanner's sheet music? Whiplash. Damien Chazelle's Whiplash centers around a drum enthusiast called Andrew Nyman, played by Miles Teller, who will do anything to make it to the top, even if it means putting up with the verbal and psychological abuse of his tyrannical conductor, Terrence Fletcher, played by a never better J.K. Simmons. In Fletcher's band, Andrew starts as a reserve for the core drummer, Carl Tanner. When Tanner loses the music sheet during a jazz competition, it allows Andrew to replace him since he can't perform without visual cues. This momentary setback triggers a series of events that allows Andrew to earn his official place in the band until he's eventually kicked out himself. However, it's never revealed what really happened to Tanner's sheet music. Did a rival band member take it? Was Andrew correct in thinking a janitor maybe misplaced it? The most common theory is that Fletcher stole the sheet to teach the boys a lesson. The idea is plausible given that Fletcher was complaining in the prior scene that the band keeps leaving their music folders lying around carelessly. The fact Fletcher behaves calmly, by his standards, when he learns Andrew lost the folder gives this theory some weight. However, there is no irrefutable evidence that Fletcher is in fact the culprit. Since the disappearance of the sheet music played a major factor in Andrew's rise and fall, it's surprising nobody gets to the bottom of this mystery in the movie itself.
What did Laura Palmer whisper to Dale Cooper? Twin Peaks. One of David Lynch's quintessential works, Twin Peaks combines suspenseful horror, good versus evil allegories, and a generous helping of urban fantasy to create a mix that fans still remember fondly. Being a typical David Lynch story, it offers up the usual blend of mind-bending plot twists and continuously escalating mysteries. FBI agent Dale Cooper's quest to solve the murder of Twin Peaks resident Laura Palmer ended with a fair few unanswered questions. One of the most talked about among them were Laura's final words to Dale. The very last scene of season 3 sees Dale tracking down a woman he believed to be Laura. After arriving back in Twin Peaks, all he finds is Carrie, a person resembling the murdered homecoming queen. But when she hears Laura's name, Carrie begins to scream, triggering a blackout. When the lights come back on, we see the Red Room and Laura whispering something into Dale's ear. To this very day, fans continue to speculate as to what stunning revelation may have been hidden within those muffled words.
Was it all a dream? Total Recall. Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall is probably the director's second or third greatest work. A masterful sci-fi action satire that lays bare the drudgery of our economic shackles and the futility of escape in that system. That does, of course, depend on how you read the film, which sees Arnold Schwarzenegger's Doug Quaid seemingly discover he's a secret agent and then goes on to partake in the liberation of Mars from a sinister corporation. Only everything he gets up to as Quaid after taking part in Recall, the process that implants fake memories in someone so that they can experience fantasy as reality, is exactly what he wanted from that transaction. Everything Quaid gets up to on his espionage adventure is laid out in that first meeting at Recall, right on down to the romance he has with Rachel Ticotin's Melina. Verhoeven cleverly leaves the door open to both the possibility that Quaid is living out a fantasy, or that he's broken free of the system and is leading a triumphant rebellion, to the point where the movie's villains use the former as a means of convincing him to give up his scheme. Both interpretations are ultimately valid, and there's no definitive evidence pointing to either as being the correct one, which makes the question of, is this the real Quaid, one destined to live long across many, many future rewatches of Verhoeven's immortal classic.
What did the numbers really mean? Lost. Everyone's favourite example when it comes to great shows with unsatisfactory endings and unanswered questions, Lost's engrossing tale about a group of survivors who crash land on a mysterious island produced one of the best combinations of science and supernatural ever seen on TV. Unfortunately, the story created so many compelling mysteries throughout its run that it became a daunting task to resolve them all in a satisfactory way. In the end, the showrunners abandoned several of them. One of these unsolved mysteries that continues to spark discussion even today was that of the numbers. The digits 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42 appear in several places all throughout the show, some of them seemingly innocuous, such as when they appeared on the speedometer of Hurley's car. Others were far more significant, such as when they became the numbers on the lighthouse dial corresponding to the 6 final candidates brought to the island. While there are numerous theories and some explanations of what the numbers mean, Lost never quite explicitly revealed the true significance of these numbers and why they kept appearing. One could argue that this was intentionally so, but nonetheless, fans of the show would give anything for a proper answer.
How do the 3 seashells work? Demolition Man. Demolition Man received mixed reviews back in the day, but has since developed a cult following due to its biting social commentary and, well, let's be honest, it's cool because Wesley Snipes basically plays the action movie Joker. This guy is magnetic in this film. But another reason why certain moviegoers still reflect on this sci-fi action comedy is because of one specific joke. The story follows a tough-as-nails cop called John Spartan, played by Sylvester Stallone, who wakes up in a drastically different future. While using the bathroom, he's baffled to learn that toilet paper has been replaced in this goody two-shoes utopia with 3 seashells. Obviously, this throwaway gag wasn't meant to be given much thought, and yet, there are some who just can't let it go. Since the shells are never explained, viewers are encouraged to use their imaginations to comprehend how this society disposes of their business. There are plenty of theories online, but there's no concrete explanation. Of course, the reason why there's no concrete explanation is because there was never meant to be, so the 3 seashells will continue to haunt us until the end of time. Stranger still, Spartan indicates he still doesn't understand how the seashells work after seeing them again later in the movie. Poor guy, destined to live out his remaining days in bathroom-related discomfort. You hate to see it.
How did Tabitha save the multiverse? Riverdale. Riverdale was never known for following up on storylines and delivering satisfactory conclusions. The Archie comic adaptation that started off as this dark and compelling murder mystery before flying off the rails and into all sorts of crazy territories left a whole host of subplots unresolved. A similar treatment was reserved for the central storyline of the show. The ending of season 6 saw the gang, now wielding all kinds of superpowers and having traversed parallel universes, facing off against the final evil boss Percival. Despite killing him, their victory was short-lived, as the final spell from the immortal sorcerer brought an entire comet down on Riverdale. Faced with inevitable doom, Tabitha's only option for saving her friends was to use her time powers and send them into the past. And that was it, the end of the big battle. The final season focuses on the group battling the social evils of the 1950s. While in somewhat uncharacteristic fashion, it actually delivers a solid season of television, but the key storyline is never revisited. At the very end, Tabitha, in her guardian angel form, does come back to restore everyone's memories, but we never get a final climax where the good guys save the day. Tabitha simply tells them that the timeline is now stable, but how did she do it? What effects did sending a whole group of people from the present into the past have? Did Tabitha simply send them back in time, or did she somehow rewrite reality?